This happened my sophomore year of college. It was my first time living off campus, my first real taste of independence, and I was in this garden-level apartment at the back of a slightly rundown complex. The best part about it was this little concrete patio out back, separated from a small patch of woods by a rickety fence. It wasn't much, but it was mine. With October rolling in, I was dead set on making it feel like home, which for me meant getting way too into Halloween. My girlfriend at the time, Sarah, came over one of the first weekends of the month, and we spent the whole afternoon carving pumpkins. It was one of those perfect fall days. We had cider, put on a horror movie in the background. It was cliché in the best way. I carved a classic triangle-eyed jack-o'-lantern with a big, goofy grin. It's safe to say I was pretty proud of it. When we were done, I picked the perfect spot for him, right in the middle of my little patio, facing out towards the woods. I put one of those battery-powered flickering candles inside, and when it got dark, it looked perfect. It was the first decoration I put up, my little orange guardian of the season. The next morning, I went to make coffee. My kitchen window looked right out onto the patio. I glanced outside and something was off. It took me a second to process it. The pumpkin was still there, right in the middle of the patio, but it was turned around. It was facing the other way, its goofy grin pointed directly at my sliding glass door. I just stood there for a minute, coffee mug in hand. It didn't make any sense. I figured maybe some kids from the complex were messing with me, a harmless little prank. Still, for whatever reason, it rubbed me the wrong way. I went outside, turned him back around to face the woods, and tried not to think about it. The next day, my blood ran cold. I looked out the kitchen window and my pumpkin was there, still facing the woods like I'd left it. But it wasn't alone. Sitting right next to it, almost touching it, was another pumpkin. A big, uncarved one, perfectly clean, like someone had just bought it from the store. I instantly felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just a prank anymore. Someone had to have bought this pumpkin, walked up to my patio in the middle of the night, and just left it there. I texted Sarah asking if it was her, knowing it wasn't her style. She, of course, said no and told me to be careful. I didn't know what to do. I figured if I moved it, whoever was doing this would just do something else. So I left it. I told myself it was just some weirdo neighbor trying to be friendly in a very, very strange way. But I can't lie, I made damn sure the sliding glass door was locked and the security bar was in place that night. I kept peeking through the blinds, but I never saw anything. The following morning, I was almost too scared to look, but I forced myself. I went to the window, took a deep breath, and opened the blinds. My two pumpkins were there. But the new one, it wasn't blank anymore. It had been carved, and it was the most unsettling jack-o'-lantern I had ever seen. There were no goofy triangle eyes. This one had two thin, angry slits for eyes and a jagged, downturned mouth, like a furious snarl. It looked like it was furious at my original happy pumpkin. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't friendly. This felt personal. Someone was coming to my patio, my space, every single night while I was sleeping just a few feet away. They were taking their time, carving this thing. I felt watched, violated. I called the non-emergency line for the police, but they basically told me that unless someone was trying to break in, it was probably just a prank and there was nothing they could do. They suggested I get a security camera. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch in the dark, just staring at the black rectangle of the sliding glass door, listening. Every creak of the building, every rustle of leaves outside made my heart pound. Nothing happened. The next morning, exhausted, I finally went to the window. Everything looked the same. The happy pumpkin and the angry pumpkin, sitting there like a bizarre little family. But then I saw it. On the concrete of the patio, near the pumpkins, were a few small, muddy footprints. And next to them was a single, long piece of straw, like the kind you'd use to stuff a scarecrow. That's when it clicked. The dots connected in a way that made me feel physically sick. The pumpkins, the straw. I backed away from the window, my whole body trembling. This was it. I was done. I decided I was going to throw the pumpkins in the dumpster and forget this ever happened. I waited until it was late afternoon when the sun was still out. I took a deep breath, slid the security bar out of the door, unlocked it, and stepped outside. And I stopped dead. There was a new addition. Scratched into the concrete of my patio right in front of my door was a single, crudely drawn word: smile. Okay, I have to pause right here for just a second. This is that moment, the one where your blood runs cold and you realize the game is over and the real threat is at your door. It's the kind of psychological dread that I look for in these stories. If you feel that same chill down your spine and you want to make sure you never miss another true nightmare like this one, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 1 second, it's free, and it's the best way to support the channel and join our community of horror fans. I really appreciate it. All right, back to the story. I'm standing on my patio, frozen, staring at that word carved into the concrete. I ran back inside, slammed the door, and locked it. I was full on panicking now, my mind racing. I grabbed my phone to call 911 for real this time. As I was dialing, I heard a sound, a soft thump, 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 right on the glass of my sliding door. My heart damn near stopped. I knew I shouldn't look, but I couldn't help it. I crept over to the blinds, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I pulled the vertical blind back just a millimeter, and I saw it. A face, pressed right up against the glass. It was orange. It had 2 thin, angry slits for eyes and a jagged, snarling mouth. There was no body, no person holding it, just the carved, angry face of the second pumpkin, hovering there, staring right at me. I screamed, dropped my phone, and scrambled backwards, falling over my coffee table. The thumping got louder, faster, like it was trying to break through the glass. I grabbed my phone and ran into my bedroom, locking the door and shoving a dresser in front of it while I screamed at the 911 operator. The police were there in 5 minutes. When I finally worked up the nerve to come out, they were searching my patio with flashlights. They found nothing. The footprints were there. The scratch on the concrete was there. But the pumpkins, both of them, were just gone. There was no sign of anyone. They checked the woods, the fence line, everything. Nothing. They wrote it up as a prank with menacing undertones and left. I broke my lease the next day. I paid the fee and I didn't care. I stayed at a friend's place until I found a new apartment on the 3rd floor. I never found out who was tormenting me. I don't know if it was a person or something else. But sometimes, even now, when it's quiet at night, I can still hear that sound, that soft, rhythmic thumping on the glass. And I can see that angry orange face staring back at me from the dark. This was a few years ago, back when I was trying to be more social and say yes to things, even if they weren't exactly my scene. So when my group of friends decided we were all going to a haunted hayride at some farm about an hour out of town, I agreed. I'm not a huge fan of jump scares or people in masks, but it was a Saturday night in October and it felt like the thing to do. We got there and the place was packed. It was a full-on Halloween festival. Cider, pumpkin patches, the works. The main attraction, though, was the hayride through the cornfields and the supposedly haunted woods. After about an hour of waiting in a line that snaked around a barn, we finally climbed onto a big wagon filled with hay bales, pulled by a rumbling tractor. The mood was fun, everyone laughing and anticipating the scares. The ride started, and it was exactly what you'd expect. Teenagers in ghoul masks would jump out from behind corn stalks. A guy with a fake chainsaw would run alongside the wagon. Theatrical screams would play from hidden speakers. It was cheesy, but we were having a good time. About 10 minutes in, the tractor slowed to a crawl as we passed a small, dilapidated shack set up as part of the scenery. Most of the actors were high energy, running and screaming, but there was one guy who was different. He was standing perfectly still about 20 yards from the trail, partially hidden by the corn. He was dressed as a farmer in dirty overalls and a flannel shirt, no mask. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, leaning on a shovel, watching our wagon go by. I pointed him out to my friend, Jess. She just shrugged. Guess he's just being creepy. Good acting. I figured she was right, but for whatever reason, he rubbed me the wrong way. The other actors were playing to the crowd. He seemed completely unaware of us, yet his eyes followed the wagon until we turned a corner. We went deeper into the woods, where they had more setups with werewolves and zombies. Then, the trail looped back out towards the cornfields. As we came out of the tree line, I saw him again. The farmer. He was on the other side of the trail this time, and he was closer, maybe 15 yards away. He was still holding the shovel, still standing perfectly motionless. But this time, I felt like he was looking right at me. I could see his face more clearly. He was older, with a gaunt, tired look. He wasn't acting scared or scary. He just looked grim. As our wagon passed him, he lifted his free hand, and for a second, I thought he was going to wave. But he just held it up, palm open, and then slowly closed it into a fist. "Did you see that?" I whispered to Jess. "What was that about?" She hadn't been looking. "It's a haunted hayride, man. They're supposed to be weird." I tried to let it go, but a genuine sense of unease started to creep in. It didn't feel like part of the show. It felt like a message. That's when the tractor sputtered. It coughed once, twice, and then the engine died completely. We all kind of laughed at first, assuming it was a planned part of the experience. But the driver, a young kid who was our guide, started genuinely trying to crank the engine again and again. Nothing. Sorry folks," he said, his voice cracking a little. "Looks like we've got a real issue here." The fun, party atmosphere on the wagon evaporated instantly. We were stuck, deep in the fields, with only the tractor's headlights cutting through the pitch-black night. The guide told us to stay put while he radioed for another tractor. He was talking into his walkie-talkie, but all we could hear was static. "Signal's spotty out here," he muttered, sounding more nervous now. "Okay, new plan. The main barn is only about a half-mile walk that way. Everyone needs to stay with me, single file." We all climbed down from the wagon, our boots hitting the dirt. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the rustling of the corn in the wind. And that's when I saw him for the third time. At the very edge of the tractor's headlight beam, standing where the corn met the darkness, was the farmer. He was just watching us, waiting. "Hey," I said to the guide, pointing. "Is that guy supposed to be out here with us?" The guide squinted into the dark. "Who? I don't see anyone." But I could see him clear as day. And as the last of us got off the wagon, he took one slow step forward, out of the corn and into the light. He wasn't holding the shovel anymore. He was holding a rock, a big one, the size of a softball. My blood ran cold. That's when it clicked. This wasn't an actor. The other monsters had long since disappeared. Their scene's over. This man was just here. "We need to go now," I said, my voice shaking. Our guide finally seemed to understand the urgency and started ushering us down the dirt path, away from the broken-down tractor and the silent figure who was watching us. We walked in a tight, terrified group, using our phone flashlights to see. I kept looking over my shoulder, but I couldn't see the farmer anymore. The darkness had swallowed him. But I could hear something. To our left, in the cornfield that ran parallel to our path, I could hear a faint, rhythmic rustling. Shh, shh, shh. It was moving with us, keeping our exact pace. A girl behind me started to cry. "I hear something in there," she whimpered. The guide tried to reassure her. "It's just an animal, probably a deer." But I knew it wasn't a deer. The sound was too deliberate, too patient. It was following us. Those 10 minutes felt like an eternity. We could finally see the bright lights of the main festival area up ahead. The rustling in the corn kept pace with us until we were about 50 yards from the barn, and then it just stopped. We burst out of the darkness and into the light, a frantic, panicked mess. The manager of the farm came running over, apologizing profusely about the tractor. Our guide was explaining what happened, how they got stuck, and then I had to ask. I pulled the guide aside. "That guy," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "The farmer who was out there with us. Who was he?" The guide gave me a completely blank look. He said, "What are you talking about? There's no farmer character in that part of the trail." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Yes, there is," I insisted. "The older guy, with the shovel, and then the rock. He followed us." The guide shook his head, looking genuinely confused. Then he turned and pointed to a group of about 10 people in various monster costumes, all drinking water by the side of the barn. "Those are all my scare actors for tonight," he said. "Every single one of them is accounted for. There was no one else out there." After my divorce, it was just me and my 7-year-old daughter, Maya. I spent every last dime I had to get us a small house in a neighborhood that looked like it was ripped straight from a movie set. Manicured lawns, big oak trees, one of those welcome signs at the entrance. It was the kind of place where you felt safe letting your kid ride her bike down the street. It was perfect. A little too perfect, maybe. Looking back, that should have been the first warning sign. When Halloween rolled around, Maya was vibrating with excitement. This was our first Halloween in the new house, and the neighborhood went all out. Every single porch had a display of corn stalks and pumpkins. Tasteful, not too scary. As the sun started to set, I grabbed our candy bucket and we headed out. The air smelled like burning leaves and chimney smoke. It was idyllic. We hit the first house, a nice little colonial. The woman who answered the door had this big, bright, practiced smile. "Happy Halloween?" I said. She didn't say it back. She just looked down at Maya, her smile never faltering, and dropped a single piece of candy into her bucket. It was a piece of saltwater taffy in a simple, unmarked wax paper wrapper. "Thanks," I said, a little confused by the lack of variety, but whatever. We moved on. Second house, same thing. A man with the exact same wide, unblinking smile. He dropped one identical piece of taffy into Maya's bucket. Okay, that was weird. A coincidence? Maybe they all went to the same store. At the third house, I started to feel a genuine pit in my stomach. A younger couple answered the door together, both of them with those same fixed, glassy smiles. They didn't speak. They just looked at Maya, then at me, and then dropped their single piece of taffy into the bucket. I started looking around, really looking. Every jack-o'-lantern on every porch had the exact same face carved into it. Two simple circle eyes and a wide, placid smile. No triangles, no angry faces, just this blank, happy expression. And every house had the same kind of amber-colored bulb in their porch light, casting the whole street in a uniform honey-colored glow. "Daddy, my tummy hurts a little," Maya said. I looked down and saw the empty wax paper wrapper in her hand. My heart skipped a beat. "You ate one?" "It was good," she said, looking up at me. I forced a smile. "Okay, sweetie. Let's just hit one more house, and then we'll go home." I was lying. We were going home now. I was trying to figure out how to get us out of there without sprinting and causing a scene. We turned the corner, trying to loop back toward our street, and that's when the real dread set in. The street looked identical to the one we were just on. The same houses, the same pumpkins, the same amber lights. It was like we were on a treadmill. People were starting to come out of their houses now. Not to trick or treat, but just to stand on their porches. They were all holding their empty candy bowls, smiling those same vacant smiles, watching us. It was dead silent. There were no other kids out, no sounds of laughter or trick or treat. There was only the sound of our footsteps on the pavement and the rustle of the autumn leaves. "Daddy, I want to go home," Maya whimpered, grabbing my leg. "I know, sweetie. We're going," I whispered, scooping her up into my arms. I started walking faster, my heart hammering against my ribs. I picked a direction and just went, trying to ignore the silent, smiling sentinels on every porch. That's when I heard it, a low, humming sound. It started from one house, then another joined in, then another. It was a simple, melodic tune, and it was coming from all around us. The smiling people on their porches were humming in unison, their eyes following us as we moved down the street. I started to run. I didn't care anymore. I ran with Maya clutched to my chest, her face buried in my shoulder. I could hear her starting to cry. The humming grew louder, a wave of sound that seemed to press in on us from all sides. I finally saw it up ahead, the main road, the entrance to the neighborhood. Freedom. But as I got closer, I saw a group of them standing there, blocking the exit. About a dozen people, men and women, standing shoulder to shoulder like a human wall. They were all holding their candy bowls, all smiling that terrible, empty smile. The woman from the very first house was standing in the middle. I skidded to a stop about 20 feet away, panting, my mind screaming. The humming stopped. The silence that fell was somehow even more terrifying. The woman took one step forward. Her smile widened, if that was even possible. She didn't yell. Her voice was calm, almost sweet. "Leaving so soon?" she said. "You haven't finished your rounds." She then held up her candy bowl. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with those same wax paper-wrapped taffies. "It's your turn," she said, her voice dropping into a sing-song melody. "It's your turn to welcome next year's family." I didn't even think. I saw a small gap between two houses to my left that led into a dark patch of woods. I just bolted. I crashed through the manicured hedges and plunged into the darkness of the trees, branches scratching at my face and arms. Behind me, I didn't hear footsteps. I just heard the humming start again. A calm, unified, and utterly horrifying melody that followed me until I finally burst out of the woods and onto the shoulder of a main highway, gasping for air under the harsh, normal glow of the streetlights. We got Maya to the emergency room. They ran every test they could think of. They found nothing. She was physically fine, but she wasn't. She was quiet for weeks after that. We moved out of that house before the month was over, broke the lease, and never looked back. I never told anyone the real reason why. Who would believe me? But the worst part, the part that keeps me awake at night, happened about 6 months later. Maya was in her room playing. I heard her humming. It was a quiet, simple little tune. It was the same melody I heard that night. I walked to her doorway and stood there, my blood turning to ice. "Maya," I said, my voice trembling. "That's a pretty song. Where did you learn it?" She stopped humming and looked up at me, and she gave me a big, bright, and completely empty smile. "From the nice people," she said, "the ones with the candy."